What if I told you that most cancer patients don't get the full benefits from the cancer treatments given to them by their oncologist? Unfortunately, most oncologists don't give the patients a real and scientifically accurate answer. Some oncologists even say, eat whatever you want, doesn't really matter. Nothing can be further from the truth. If the cancer comes back, almost certainly it's because the stem cells of the cancer regenerated the cancer. So, good news. There's foods that can kill cancerous stem cells. Like what? Like food. Welcome to Dr. Nathan Cole Unplugged, real insights from the cutting edge. This is a stripped down, no fluff conversation where I take you behind the scenes as a scientist and as a doctor to break down what's real versus what's hype when it comes to your health. It's raw, unscripted, no sugarcoating, just real talk and real science. And today we're diving into foods you should eat if you've been diagnosed with cancer. Now, why this matters, what the science says, and what you can do about it. That's what we're going to get into today. Foods and cancer, because every individual who's diagnosed with cancer always wonders what did they do wrong that actually led them to develop cancer. Now it could be genetics, it could be environmental exposures, it could also be a lifetime of poor diet. A lot of different factors contribute to the mutations that happen in our body that result in the development of cancer. Now it is true some foods can actually contribute to causing cancer, although it's very rarely that it's a single food that does it. But I want to address this because a lot of people say, well, what foods did I eat or what foods should I avoid that might be causing cancer, right? Because you hear so much about harmful foods. Well, look, there is a laundry list of foods that can increase the risk of developing cancer, and these include some disturbingly common foods like processed meat. Now, processed meat is actually classified as a Class 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization. All right, so you might say, well, what's a class? What's an example of a processed meat? Well, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats, salami, ham, bacon, corned beef, probably these comfort foods that we all grew up with, they have been shown that they can increase your risk of developing cancer. If you eat them, not once, but if you eat them over time, you eat too much of them, you have too much exposure to processed meats, that actually increases your risk for digestive cancers. So that's including colon cancer. All right, not surprising, the meat and stuff and the chemicals have to go through your gut going down to your colon. Now, here's another cancer risk that's related to meat. And that is grilled meats. Now, this isn't about the meat itself. It's really about the grilling process that coats the meats with carcinogens or cancer-causing chemicals, toxic chemicals. One of them is called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. That's polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. I know it's a mouthful. I'm going to abbreviate it as PA, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. All right, now these are carcinogens that form when the oils from the fat drips down into the flame and smokes, right? That's what gives you that nice grilled meat taste. Now that rising smoke containing the carcinogens deposits the carcinogens all over the meat underneath it. Okay. Now, high grilling temperatures also converts the amino acids and proteins that are found in the meat. Proteins are actually made of amino acids. The high heat actually converts the proteins into another toxic carcinogen called heterocyclic amines HCA. All right. And these heterocyclic amines, by the way, and the PAHs, if you don't carefully cook the grill surface, they actually are all over that black char that's left on the grates of your grill. So the next time you're grilling food, all right, make sure you really clean those grates from the last cooking period of time, because that last grilled meat session left these carcinogens on that grilled surface. Now, you put a fresh piece of meat or vegetables or fish on top of that toxic carcinogens, guess what? You're going to transfer that right onto that next piece of meat. Now look, most of us enjoyed grilled foods, all right? And it's okay to have it once in a while. But here's a couple of tips that will help you lower your risk of being exposed to the carcinogens from these foods. Now, I promise you, I will tell you about foods that you should eat. But I wanted to point out some of the foods that you got to be really careful about. So, the first thing you want to do, be careful next time you are grilling food, is to clean that grill. Wipe down those grates, okay? That black char, get it off before each use. And of course, after each use, so you have a better surface next time. Coated with pH and HCAS, these carcinogens. Number 1. Number 2, don't stand over the grill too long, right? So, you know the classic thing that people do when they're grilling? You stand there with your apron and your hat or whatever, and you're sitting there with the tongs right over the grill. Well, that smoke is going onto your face. That's kind of part of that experience. Well, watch out. That smoke that's coming off the grill, that smoke contains the pH and HCAs right into your face. You really don't want that. So stand back from the grill when you're actually putting meat or fish or vegetables on it. Now, the third thing you want to do is to lower the carcinogens that develop during grilling. One thing you can do is to marinate your food. Meat, fish, vegetables. All right? Marinate them using the juice from tropical fruits. All right? So, pineapples and citrus too and things like that, because I'll tell you why. The juice from the tropical fruits can contain antioxidants, all right? You want to dust it with some cumin, turmeric, that will also help. But these antioxidants will help to neutralize those harmful carcinogens that can actually form. So you're really kind of fighting back against the carcinogens that can actually develop during grilling. And the fourth thing you want to do to lower your risk of developing cancer or being exposed to cancer-causing elements in grilled food is, well, this is the easy one. Just don't eat grilled foods too often. Like I said, most of us actually enjoy the taste of grilled food. Kind of, it's like a human thing, right? Like cooking over the fire. But I'm telling you right here, right now, that grilling can contribute to some of the increase in the risk of developing cancer risk because of the byproducts of the grilling process itself. Okay, now I want to focus on what foods you should eat if you've been diagnosed with cancer. All right, now again, I'm a doctor, and virtually every cancer patient I've ever met has asked me or the oncologist, "Hey doc, what should I eat to help me fight my cancer? What should I do at home?" Unfortunately, most oncologists don't give the patients a real and scientifically accurate answer. In fact, it's too bad because some oncologists even say, eat whatever you want, doesn't really matter, just don't lose too much weight. Because, that's the whole thing, is that over cancer treatment, you can actually lose a lot of weight as a cancer progresses. Well, let me tell you, when that oncologist said, eat whatever you want, it doesn't really matter. Nothing can be further from the truth. So you want the real deal unplugged version of this? Let me just tell you, food matters. And this is because your body is hardwired with health defense systems that help us naturally fight cancers. So when you have cancer, your health defenses have failed, and now you got to actually shore them back up and activate them so they can actually help the medicines work along with the medicines to help fight cancer. This isn't food versus medicine. It's food and medicine. You want to actually eat foods to activate those health defenses. Now, I write about these health defenses in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. You haven't seen it, you can get it wherever books are sold. There are 5 health defenses. All of them help us fight cancer naturally, and all of them can be activated by our food. So what are the 5? Androgenesis. That's how our body grows blood vessels, and one of the defenses against cancers that cut off the blood supply feeding cancers. All right, second health defense is our regeneration system. So look, cancer develops, your body gets rid of it. Now you got to replace where the cancer was. It can regenerate, all right? And if you're getting cancer treatment like chemotherapy, targeted therapy, etc., or having surgery, all right, your body has to heal after the cancer's been killed off. And to heal properly, it regenerates from the inside out. Second health defense, you can stimulate that with food. Third is our gut microbiome. You've heard of gut health? Yep, that's 39 trillion healthy bacteria in our gut, mostly in our colon. In fact, in the early part of our colon area called the cecum, all right? Those healthy bacteria help to lower inflammation in your body. They help to boost immunity so you can actually fight off the cancer cells. And again, all of this actually combines powerfully and activated by food to whatever cancer treatment that your doctor is going to give you, your oncologist is going to give you. So nothing could be further from the truth by saying, if it doesn't matter, just eat anything. No, you want to eat the foods that will activate the system. Next health defense against cancer is our DNA repair and protection system, right? Cancer is basically a mutation of our DNA. All right, mutated DNA, mutated cell, mutant cell leads to more mutant cells. They pile up and now you've got a cancer, a tumor, all right? So our DNA protection system defends the mutant DNA by getting rid of it or fixing it so it doesn't actually become a full-blown cancer. You want your DNA protection system fixed, and foods can activate that too. And then finally, our immune system. Now, our immune system does a couple of interesting things. It raises inflammation when it needs to. But cancer is a highly inflammatory disease. Basically, if when cancer meets inflammation, it's like pouring gasoline onto the embers of a fire. Whoosh. It's going to really go up in flames. That's why you want to actually eat anti-inflammatory foods to lower inflammation, okay? And then the other thing you want to do with foods is to boost your immunity. Now, this is especially true if you're getting chemotherapy, because you know what chemotherapy does? It lowers your immune defenses, so you gotta counter that by boosting your immune system. Alright, 5 health defenses: angiogenesis, regeneration, gut health, DNA protection, immunity/inflammation foods can actually powerfully influence all of these systems that can help your body contribute to beating cancer. Pretty simple, like a no-brainer. Alright, so each of these systems can help tip the odds in your favor while you're getting treatment. Now, why doesn't the oncologist talk about this? Well, most doctors, including oncologists, haven't been trained to look at these health defenses. Doctors, oncologists are trained to look at cancer as a bad set of cells that you have to kill using drugs. And food is not part of their traditionally taught toolbox. All right. When I went to medical school, basically food was never taught. I had actually a whole only 1 week of nutrition in my entire 4 years, and I had to learn everything afterwards on my own. All right. So you can't really blame the doctor that was never educated about something. But now I can tell you that the next generation, the younger oncologists, they're more likely to actually pay attention to this stuff because they care about food as medicine for themselves. All right? So this is another thing that you might want to consider when you're choosing your oncologist. Do have a young person now. They may not have quite as much experience as the person with gray hair. All right, the older senior doctor, but guess what? They may actually have a more comprehensive, more holistic approach. And that's actually an important consideration when you're choosing your oncologist. And again, as I said, slowly the system is changing. But the old guard that's out there, most of the senior oncologists, they, if they're interested in nutrition at all, they're still learning basically from scratch. So the system is going to change, but it's going to be slow. Now, when I say it matters, okay, this is not voodoo witchcraft. This is not hopeful kale fawn waving. There's real clinical evidence that the food that you eat can make a difference in terms of cancer outcome. All right, so whenever I talk to a doctor and I say the things I just said earlier a few minutes ago, they'll say, all right, prove it to me. All right, here you go. A study by oncologists of 826 people with stage 3 colon cancer. That's pretty advanced. All right, undergoing regular treatment, just regular cancer treatment, found that those people who ate 2 servings of tree nuts, that's 2 fistfuls of tree nuts every week, had a 57% improvement in survival. They got regular treatment, but they ate nuts. In addition to that, and their survival improved. Now, why would that be? Well, nuts have healthy fats that improve immune system. Nuts are packed with dietary fiber that helps your gut microbiome, which lowers inflammation, which tips the odds in your favor of actually being able to beat the cancer. Not that surprising, all right, but it just shows you how powerful food can be. Another study, all right, a study of 249 people with various types of cancers who are all receiving the latest type of cancer treatment. It's called immunotherapy. This is actually not chemo. This is actually a treatment where you use your own immune system, the body's own immune system, to combat cancer. You just got to wake it up and get it kind of charged up. The researchers who were based in France actually found that those cancer patients who did not respond to immunotherapy, guess what? They were lacking a healthy gut bacteria. They were lacking. Remember, I told you the gut bacteria very powerful for lowering inflammation and boosting your immune system. Well, this one critical bacteria is called Akkermansia muciniphil. And guess what? You can grow that by eating food. And in fact, the only way to naturally grow Akkermansia, which was found to be needed if you want to respond to immunotherapy, meaning helping your own immune system fight off cancer, is by eating foods that grow Akkermansia, like pomegranates and cranberries and mangoes and other foods like chili peppers and Chinese black vinegar. They can all help to grow this useful, healthy, important, immune-boosting, anti-inflammatory, metabolism, pruning bacteria called Akkermansia muciniphila. Now, if you're somebody who is battling cancer, or somebody is and you're listening to me, you might say, well, look, how do you know if you have Akkermansia? How do you even know? Good point. All right, you can measure whether you have Akkermansia. All you've got to do is to order a gut microbiome test. So how does that work? Basically, it's a test that comes in the mail. It's got a little tube that you're going to mail back to the lab, and it's got a little swab, and you got to just swab your poop, put it into the vial, screw it shut, pop it in the mail, boom, it's gone. Couple of weeks and you're going to get an email and say your results are ready, and you can see for yourself if you have that Akkermansia. The other thing you can do with a gut microbiome test is to see if you have harmful bacteria in your gut as well. That might be causing inflammation. That's a big no-no. You want to actually get rid of those harmful bacteria. You want to grow good ones like Accurantia. Okay, if you're somebody that says, well, that's too much for me, because many times people with cancer are overwhelmed. Listen, ask your oncologist, hey, can you help me get a gut microbiome test? All right, and if they can't or they won't, unfortunately, that can happen sometimes. I guess you got to do it yourself. All right, or get a friend or family member to help order one for you, and then you got to do it yourself. But you should take those results back to your oncologist so they can work with you, and maybe you'll teach them something along the way as well. But if they're knowledgeable, you're giving them more information that they can use as a medical profession to help to fine-tune and maybe even predict whether you're going to respond to the treatment, okay? Now, if somebody's newly diagnosed with cancer, all right, one of the questions is, what are some of the things that you want to be eating right away, okay? So let's get into that. First thing I want to tell you is that there's no list of 1, 2, 3, because everybody's different. You've heard of personalized medicine. All right.